Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Today we have a special guest, Aphiel Levi from the Forefront Radio. He'll be joining us today to have a great conversation. Let's go to the intro.
Justice for you and me. Justice for Mike Brown.
No justice, no peace.
After the death that shook the entire country, I decided to step up as a community activist and create a global podcast, Woke by Accident. Here, I amplify compelling news stories and matters impacting African Americans and their communities. My goal is to give a voice to the voiceless and have the difficult conversations needed to advance relations and matters of race. Tune in to Woke by Accident podcast. I am your host, Jen, and it is streaming on all of your favorite streaming platforms, as well as our website, www.wokebyaccident.net. Thank you for listening and take care.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Today we have a special guest, Aphiel Levi from the Forefront Radio. Welcome to the show, Levi.
Thanks for having me on the show. Much appreciated. I always enjoy having our great discussions, talking about Black history and current events.
Yes. So we have some topics that I wanted to get your take on, and thank you for joining us today. And let's see. So there's an update with the Buffalo shootings. We had covered this story a few weeks ago. The person responsible for this matter is Peyton Gendron, who's the white gunman who went on a racist rampage, killing 10 Black people at the supermarket in Buffalo. Now, he could be facing the death penalty. The charges were updated in this matter. So, according to the U.S. Justice Department, Gendron was charged with 10 counts of a hate crime resulting in the death, 3 counts of a hate crime involving bodily injury, 10 counts of use of a firearm to commit murder during and in relation to a violent crime, and 3 counts of use and discharge of a firearm during a violent crime. So these particular charges meet this be eligible for death penalty. So this is the update. What are your thoughts on these updated charges and the thought that he'd be facing the death penalty? I know at that time he just had the one charge, and so they did go deeper and add the additional counts and charges. Let's see. So, I want to get your thoughts on these additional charges added.
So, my thoughts on the additional charges is the fact that this individual who committed a crime actually, I apologize.
That's it.
So, right now, what's going on is that this individual that is a white supremacist created an egregious acts against innocent people, and it's rightfully so that he is charged more than what they initially gave him, because I think they gave him like second degree or something like that initially. If I can't remember completely, but the fact that the Bible proves all these things that are happening to our people, it's important for us to understand current events from a biblical perspective. When you read the scriptures, it tells you that the children of Israel are persecuted by the children of Esau. And it's important for us to understand this because we have the thought process that those that have oppressed us have our best interests at heart, and that's not the case. Deuteronomy chapter 28 talks about some of the generational blessings and curses that happened to the nation of Israel. We're going to touch on it real quick. Deuteronomy 28:15, but it shall come to pass if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So a generational curse is a sign to indicate who we are in these last days. And here's an example of such. Curse shall thou be in the city, and curse shall thou be in the field. In the major cities all across America, no matter where you go, most African Americans, Latinos, Native American, indigenous populations are cursed in the city. How so? They're in the ghettos, they're in the slums, they're in the reservations, they're in the barrios. They suffer from extreme forms of violence, drug use, and all these different things that impact our communities. So, in this instance, we have where a Caucasian male came into the city and targeted specifically black people. It says in the same chapter, it says in verse 29, and thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, but thou shalt be only oppressed and spoil evermore, and no man shall save thee. So in the instance of what we just saw, no man came and saved these people from what happened.
Right. Right. So yeah, just kind of going back over the events of that crime. Let's see. So he was already facing life in prison with the possibility of parole from a slew of state charges that were announced back on June 1st. But now we have the 25 criminal counts, including these 10 counts that we went over, each of first and second degree murder. And so um, the three counts attempted murder as a hate crime, and then the one count of a criminal possession of a weapon. And the original event was May 14th, where he drove hours from his hometown in upstate New York to the Tops Friendly Market before using an assault rifle to end the life of 10 people and injuring several others. And
And
then, mhm,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just going to make a comment real quick. That the interesting thing about it is the thought process that's in this man's mind, it ain't right. It's
yeah,
not right. Even when you read in the scriptures, when it talks about the spirit behind Esau, it says this, it says, behold, his soul which is lifted up. There's no other group of people that are so lifted up with pride than the children of Edom. Okay. We know
mhm,
them as Americans, as Europeans. We know these as the Caucasian culture, right? It says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him. Who grows up and from the age of 14 up until now, because he was an 18-year-old man, thinks in their thought process that in order to save themselves, they have to assassinate others. It makes no sense whatsoever.
right.
No other group of people have this thought process. So it says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just, referring to the righteous of the earth, shall live by faith. So we live by the ways of the Most High. We know thou shalt not kill. We know thou shalt not commit adultery. We try to practice these things to better our community. But other groups like the nation of Edom, they don't believe in this Bible.
Hmm. Right. We talked about his online manifesto, which detailed the racist ideologies about the great replacement theory. Like you said, in his mind, he's thinking that ending the lives of people would somehow help and better his race. But, it's really hypocrisy in that whole theory. And he's not the only one that has those thoughts. We were talking earlier in the room about a Netflix documentary about a doctor that had, I guess, a scenario where women were being going through in vitro fertilization, and the doctor used his own specimen without their consent, but his intentions were to grow the race, of white people. And he, had a goal to have these blue eyed and blonde haired babies. And and so he had his own agenda, if you will. And it's really kind of sick and sad that it's kind of like that same ideology, even though you have this professional doctor that's well respected in the community and church, if you will. And then you have this kid who's this lone, loner type. But it's so many people that share that same, even some news reporter on that conservative channel, has made little comments about the race being, in trouble or something like that. So it's like a lot of people share this idea and thought process. It's kind of scary.
And the great thing that you mentioned, which is heavy, is that it's well documented that they operate as a group and not just singular, because they
Hmm.
give these stories about it being, oh, it's just a lone wolf, it's just one instance where one person is going off, when in reality it's more than one, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she's a renowned author. She wrote about the fear of genetic annihilation, the
Okay.
fear that you will be outbred, and therefore more generations of other people that are non-white will take over the world. But guess what? The Bible says that we're going to take over the world anyway. So it's inevitable. It's inevitable.
Mm.
They're not going to reign forever. Think about this, Jen. No kingdom on this earth has ever lasted forever. The Egyptians, they went away, right? We don't
Yeah.
know of the great Egyptian empires. The kingdom of the Babylonians, it went away. The kingdom of the Greeks, the Persians, the Romans, the Roman Catholic system that was, ruling over the planet at the time, persecuting people during the Inquisition. They're not in existence. But good
Hmm.
old America, they're like, make America great again. We're going to live forever. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You will be replaced, unfortunately.
Right.
Well, fortunately for us, unfortunately for them. You see what I'm saying?
I
But
do.
yeah,
Yeah, that's it's interesting of how that viewpoint is interpreted, by those groups. And like you said, several people share that mindset, you know.
and think about it. It stems from a guilt syndrome, right? Because in their spirit, they know that they have committed some of the greatest atrocities on the planet. They go to these political meetings, the UN summit, the
Mhm,
G8, the G20, and they try to exercise authority over these nations. And during their meetings, some of these nations stand up and say, look, I know you're doing bad. I know you're mistreated. Like they even had a international tribunal where they was exposing the fact that the United States of America was guilty of breaking Geneva Conventions, breaking,
mhm.
human rights violations on and oppressing black people,
Yeah, I
pretty
remember
much.
that. You shared that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's why these nations they pretend like they don't they forgot, but they remember everything.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, any more thoughts on that before we pivot?
No, go ahead.
Okay, okay. So we'll go on to the next story I wanted to share with you guys. This one is an update in the disappearance of Felicia Johnson. We previously just covered this story on the podcast, and we actually have this very sad update. So the police are now searching for the man responsible for her death. They do allege that. Let's see, according to Houston police, let's see, this name Chiwabuka Nuwodo, who is 28. He's currently on the run as he faces charges of murder and tampering with evidence in the connection to the killing of Felicia Johnson, who was 24 years old. So this documented that the police says that Johnson was visiting Houston from her hometown of San Diego in search of work. She had applied for a job at a strip club there, and she was reported missing back in April. And we covered this story of her being missing, her family um, reaching out to several of the independent news sources trying to get information. And her bloodied cell phone and purse were discovered near a community park. So at this point, a body has not been found, but they do have more information tying her um, to this matter, so I'll share those details. So Johnson and Nuwodo made contact on Snapchat, and that's documented. And The notes revealed that he had agreed to pay her $500 for an in-person meeting. So she was picked up in Houston by an Uber driver on the early morning hours of April 16th, and she was driven to a previous residence of this suspect. And then from there, he picked her up, drove her to his current address where authorities believe she was murdered. And then the suspect allegedly purchased saw, trash bags, towels, a flashlight. Following the disappearance, latex gloves, a kitchen knife, shovel were apparently found and turned up in the search of the suspect's car, in addition to her blood. So Johnson's blood was found in the trunk and back seat of his car. So that is the tie in that they have resulted in that, she um, died and that he's responsible. Her blood was also found in his apartment, and a search of the suspect's internet records found that he had been searching on Google how to be a serial killer, how does one plan a murder without getting caught, and things of that nature. The investigators also found photos of a dismembered woman and three other dead bodies on his phone. So, we're dealing with, possibly, someone who's responsible for more than just her death with this Noboto suspect. So he was initially arrested back on May 13th in connection with her disappearance, but he was released. And then, so he's still out there and they're looking for him. So if people know something, they're urged to contact the Houston Police Department or Crime Stoppers. So definitely did not anticipate that particular ending to the story, but it's a reality that we need to be aware of, that there's a lot of predators out here seeking young women and men and children and all kind of things on these social media apps like Snapchat. Your thoughts on this unfortunate result to this story?
Yeah, what's disconcerting about this story is the fact that this young lady is not the only incident. They
Hmm.
literally found photos of other dead bodies on this
Hmm.
person's phone and they detained him. But how, we had a clubhouse discussion about this, and also on Fanbase, where a
Hmm.
person asked the question, doesn't it seem odd that they would find these things, but yet, they release them? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. So it's not that like they released him on bond. They released him after they detained him, but then they released him. You see what I'm saying? So it's really odd. But the scriptures does talk about the wickedness of this society and how things are getting worse and worse. When you read in Second Timothy chapter 3, it says this. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetousness, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. And the interesting thing about it is, this is exactly what happened with this guy. This guy portrayed himself to be a good guy, but ended up dealing with this woman evilly. And guess what? The scriptures talks about that as well. It says, for of this sort they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts. Showing you that in these days that we live in, you have men that will try to manipulate young women into doing things that are egregious and sexually pervasive. They're led away captive by these lusts. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to give you all
Yeah.
this money and you could do whatever you want. You can live it up. You could be rich and all of this stuff. This is the deception with the sex industry.
Right. That's true. Yeah, a lot of grooming goes on, and and promises, empty promises of I don't know what they are going to do, or maybe that, they'll do something for their career, they'll help them be a model or a singer or, dancer and all these, because everybody, has these dreams and aspirations of wanting to be famous and well known and popular and that kind of thing. And, it just takes that one person that, yeah, that, with those predatory plans, and we have results like this, unfortunately. So I just, caution, the listeners that, not to get caught up in, this kind of negative attention that, well, I guess we need to be aware, for young people in our lives and in our circles, perhaps I should say, who may be contacted by someone on Snapchat or social media and things like that, because we just want to keep our people safe. That's the goal.
Now, I'm not too familiar with Snapchat. Correct me if I'm wrong, but won't you have to have that person send you their information in order for you to add them as a friend on Snapchat? Like through Facebook or Instagram, and they contact you and you say, hey, hit me up on Snapchat. So they probably had more social media interaction.
For sure. And but I guess a lot of times people, because I know I get Snapchat requests from people I don't know. I thought it was for people that so that you can kind of go back and forth and things like that. But and I've heard from other people, just, in some of the rooms, that, you can meet people socially on Snapchat. So you would accept people that maybe you don't know well, and you just start conversing with them. And then, it has that location feature on there, and people meet up on there. And then apparently there's games and different little challenges that people do with that GPS location mechanism that's on there, and that can be turned off too, so where people can't see your location. But yeah, apparently people use Snapchat for people interacting with people they don't know as well. So they may just, want to get their numbers up, and they accept everybody and they click everybody, and things like that.
I wasn't even aware of that. Thank you for bringing that to my
For
attention.
sure. Yeah, totally. Because I know I'm like looking like, okay, I don't know these people. And for that, I kind of like, normally the people I accept are the people who I know. But apparently people use it like, you may accept somebody you don't know that well on Instagram or something like that, just for the followers. And people treat it like that too, just to have followers and a high number.
There's a lot of people that stalk people via social media, where if you add someone and they know that person or whatever the case may be, they'll follow both you and the other person that you may know, and
Yes.
you don't know that they're following your friend, and they're like plotting to see what's going on between you and your friend. And I see that a lot on social media where people add others and they're like, they don't message them, they don't do anything, they just follow them and see what they're doing and stuff like that. So especially with those between the ages of 15 to 30
Yes.
that are kind of naive, we want to make sure that we let them know that not everybody's your friend on the internet. I had a guy hit me up and say, what's up? So I was like, okay, is this a fan, is this a listener of the show, who
A
is this
lot of people
person?
try to, yeah.
And then what I noticed was, after he hit me up and said what's up, I looked at his profile. This dude had like swords and machetes. I was like, oh, no, I ain't responding to this dude's message. Nope, nope, not gonna happen. I ain't falling for that.
Yeah, I'm so cautious of things like that. Like if I haven't had a conversation with you or something like that, I'm prone to block. I mean, I really am. And I've had to block some people that I've had a conversation with, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I caution people to be leery of all of that. Like you said, some people use, and I know like some of the older folks I know in the circle use the rationale of, oh, well, we got mutual friends, so that must mean I know them. But like you said, they will purposely see who your friends are or connections and reach out to those people first. And and then the end to you. And then that way you're thinking, oh, well, if you know this Bob, then I know Bob, then you're okay. No, that's part of the plan. And even like that show, and this show has been on the uh years on MTV, Catfish, they really kind of show you kind of the mindset of how some of these people, I know it's a silly show, but it's really kind of good for awareness, because they show you how like you can go and assume someone's picture and I mean, it's crazy the things that people do. It's some guy in a wheelchair in Alabama, you know what I mean? And he was bored.
Right, right,
you
right.
know?
That's true. That's true. Very true.
Yeah.
It's important for us as you know, podcasters to talk on these topics
Mhm.
because more people are interested in sports and entertainment and laugh, happy-go-lucky stuff, but the real things that impact our communities they don't touch on briefly. So it's good to talk about these things and warn others. And I'm glad that we can discuss this thing in an open manner and have that interaction and dialogue, because a lot of our sisters, a lot of our brothers do engage in certain activities, stuff like sliding in the DM and all this foolishness, and they're
Yeah.
getting caught up. That's why when we read in the scriptures how these people that don't have natural affection, they're covenant breakers, they are disobedient to their parents, they're very arrogant, they have all these various spirits on them, you know
Right.
and then they go to these women and say, hey, I love you, I care about you, let's hang out, let's spend time with each other, this, that, and the third, and they manipulate these women and they don't even realize that they're being played.
Yes. Totally. There's so many ways. That could be really a whole episode, and maybe a topic for a future episode, of just being cautious of that lifestyle mentality and that world, that whole underworld that goes on. um
I'll take it one step further. They shouldn't even be involved with it at all.
yeah.
At all. No daughter of Zion. Because think about it. God originally purposed for us to be a nation of kings and priests. There should have been no prostitutes in our community. There should have been no thoughts. There should have been no thugs, no drug dealers, no drug users or pushers, because that's not a kingdom of priestly people. An elder of mine used to always say that the Negro was manufactured in America. The way we are now was not how we were when we were in our own kingdom, kingdom of Mali, the kingdom of Ghana, the kingdom of Judah, when we went
Mhm.
from West Africa to our original area in Northeast Africa. We had kings like King David, King Solomon. All the nations were in subjection to our ancestors. They were paying
Mhm.
taxes to us. They were bringing gifts and presents to us. So we in turn now, because of our affinity of these other nations that have oppressed us, we have now wanted to emulate them and have become worse than them, where
Right.
now our daughters are saying, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a video vixen. I want to be like Karen Stefan, Superhead. I want to be like Cardi B. I want to be like Nicki Minaj, Beyonce. These are not role models. These,
Beyonce could be a role model.
what I'm saying is the image and over hypersexuality,
Okay, not
not
too
the
much on Beyonce.
individual.
Not
I
too
know,
much on
I know. She's
Beyonce.
like, why you gonna go on Beyonce? Beyonce was a married woman shaking and twerking her booty like everybody else. I'm just gonna keep it real.
Oh my
I can't.
goodness.
There's no cap. Am I lying? Am I lying? Answer the question. Am I lying? Yes or no? I'm
Just
not lying.
finish your thought. Finish
So
your
here's
thought.
my thought. She's like, oh, don't get on my Beyonce. I love Beyonce. But the thought is this, sis, that the over hypersexualization of our sisters is what's being pushed in this system. Think about during slavery. You have to always include slavery and history in these discussions.
Okay.
This nation was a nation that purposefully created breeding farms for our men and women. That's what they did. This is the same system that over sexualizes our women.
Mhm.
You don't see a
Yes.
lot of videos where they're pushing video vixens as other nationalities and groups of people. So you have to look from a historical standpoint and fast forward to now. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's all
And
I'm trying to say.
okay. Thank you for sharing. Definitely appreciate that information, but just watch it on Beyonce. Um,
She like, he's coming for Beyonce neck. Leave him alone.
send you some bees in the chat. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Let's see. So we'll pivot. um, we'll pivot. Let's see. But rest in peace to the sister, Felicia Johnson, who lost her life in a very tragic way. And we just want all our people to be safe. And we want our people to be safe and aware of what's going on out here. So let's see. There's a story out of Sanford, Florida, where two white men were arrested for violently threatening a black teen. And this is the same town, if we are familiar or remember, that Trayvon Martin was killed. So let's see. So, two Florida white men were arrested on a felony charges after they racially profiled a 16-year-old black boy. They threw a rock through his car window. The incident happened in Sanford, Florida, as we mentioned. There was a video taken by the teen. It was first posted to Facebook by the boy's father on June 14th. And the next day, he posted on Instagram. And this captured the incident and the exchange with the neighbor and other neighbors chiming in. We actually, let's see. So, as a result, Donald Corsi was charged with weapon offenses for sending a missile into a vehicle. He used a large rock, as in they're calling it a missile, and he launched that into the young man's vehicle, which shattered the window completely. And then Howard Hughes, the other neighbor, was charged with first degree misdemeanor battery. Both men additionally charged with criminal mischief, accusing them of causing more of $1,000 in damages. And no one was injured, but definitely kind of a disheartening event because it kind of had a racial tone to the exchange.
Not kinda, it did. Let's get the
it
facts right.
had it had a racial tone to um the incident and the energy from the neighbors. Let's see, did we this is the one we wanted to share, is that right?
Right. I think there's a video online about it.
Okay, so we'll caution everyone that there is some language in this particular clip, but we do want to demonstrate what occurred. So oh, is that the beginning? Hang on. Let me see if I can go back.
Refresh the page from the top. Yeah, refresh the page.
Oh, if I refresh it, it'll go back. Let's see.
Right.
Okay, here we go. Oh, hit the button.
So as you're watching the video, you see that these two grown adult men are harassing this child. Look at the damage to the vehicle. The whole entire window is bust wide open. And he's driving in a Mercedes Benz and they're harassing him, jumping in his face. Two adult men harassing a child. He's 16 years old. He barely got his permit or his license. He's probably driving his father's vehicle. And he drives in the neighborhood, and these race soldiers decide that they're police officers. And they
Right.
decide to come and harass a child. Bust all up. What would prevented these men, these adult men, from doing the same thing that happened to the young brother in Florida again, or was it Georgia? Right? Those two gentlemen, that was Georgia actually. Those two
Oh, yeah,
gentlemen
Georgia.
that that jumped out of the car for a young man that was just jogging in the neighborhood, and they shot him down. So, what's the difference between those two stories? These are two adult men harassing a child. Okay, this is showing you that there's nothing new under the sun. When you read the Bible, it says this in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 7. It says, "Surely oppression makes a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart." So while you're watching that video, you realize that this young man, this child, is being oppressed by adults, okay? Grown adult men's that are above 30, maybe above 40, that have reasoning skills, intellectual maturity, emotional intelligence, should know how to deal with things appropriately. If someone is speeding in your neighborhood, the correct course of action is not to attack them, not to bust up their car. You call the authorities. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But what's retarded about this is they already bust the kid's window for his Mercedes, and then turn around and go back to his car, in the back of his car, and record his license plate as if they're going to report it to the police officer. That
Yeah.
doesn't make no damn sense. You're
Right.
basically putting evidence of your own crime up, you idiot.
Right. I think feel that they should be excused because how dare he come into our neighborhood or our, association or what have you.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
and the crazy thing about it, this was the same city that George Zimmerman shot another child by the name of Trayvon Martin. This happened in 2012, February 26, 2012. George Zimmerman walked in and saw a child walking, followed him, harassed him, and gunned him down. And he got off not guilty. And this is in the scriptures. In Zechariah chapter 11, verse 5, it says this: whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. We in the United States of America, whenever we're targeted, assassinated, harassed by the nation of Edom and their descendants, they hold themselves not guilty. And we see that with Trayvon Martin and other accounts where a lot of our people are gunned down in the streets, and there's no accountability that we see that happens.
Yeah, definitely a racial matter. Glad that they were charged as they should be. And it's just interesting that, it had to be the same type of, um, nice community association. So it really does kind of bring you back to the Trayvon Martin situation because that subdivision or what have you was, them saying you don't belong here and things like that. It really just brings you back. So it's kind of interesting
And you
that.
know it's racial. You know it's racial whenever you hear white people say, get out of my neighborhood. They never say get out of our neighborhood, like we talking
Hmm.
about collectively with Chinese and other people. No, get out of my neighborhood. It was three Caucasian people there at the scene.
Hmm.
Okay.
And you don't belong here. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So two male, one female. Guess what? That female that was recording should have been charged as well as an accessory,
Mm.
because she didn't do anything to prevent the situation. She was just sitting there trying to record it. And I could probably assure you that before she was recording, she was probably egging these dudes on. You have to understand, white supremacy is just not a white male situation. There are females as well
Yeah.
promote these things. Okay, their churches, their politicians, they promote this. This is a group think culture. Okay,
That's
they
true.
don't operate individually, they work as a group. So imagine he's in the car, right? The Caucasian male is in the car driving, minding his own business. His wife says to him, "Oh, you see that Negro boy? This is your Karen here. You see that Negro boy? He's over there driving too fast in our neighborhood. Do something about it, Chuck." And Chuck comes out of the car all riled up. He's like, "I gotta handle this. I gotta defend white supremacy." This is what they do. This is what they do. So unfortunately, we live in a society where we have to wake up, realize
True.
that we're in the land of our captivity. Watch this. I'm gonna show you something real quick out of the Bible, because we think that we're still, because we don't have chains around our neck anymore, because we don't have active lynchings happening where we could readily see it, that we're free. But in reality, we're still in the land that we were taken to in captivity. Watch this. In Baruch chapter 3, it says this: Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity. So, we as a nation of people, the children of Israel, the descendants of slavery, are still in the land of our captivity. Then it says, Where thou hast scattered us. We were taken and scattered from the northeast regions of Africa to Europe, to West Africa, to the Brazil and the United States of America. The Bible is a true book. So it says, Behold, this day, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subject to payments. Are we not paying bills? Are we not paying taxes? Are we not paying utilities? Are we not paying for everything that we want? For water
Hmm.
that comes out of the sky, for electricity that should be free, for healthcare services that should be free. In other nations, they're free. You see what I'm saying? We should have our
Right.
own wells. We should have our own plots of irrigation where we don't go to other nations paying a water bill or paying for aquafina. The same
Hmm.
with electricity. We should have free solar panels in the most developed nation in the world. In the world. Why are we still paying for simple things that we could already establish for everyone? The
Hmm.
whole world should have free electricity, free water. That should not be a service that you pay for, because it comes from the earth. So it
Right.
says once again, Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse. God sent generational curses to the children of Israel due to disobedience to God's laws. And in order to fix that, we must turn back to God's laws in order to help our people get restored, because there's a direct correlation between blessings and obedience.
Hmm.
Blessings and obedience. Obedience equals generational blessings.
Hmm.
Disobedience equals generational curses, generational trauma, slavery, and oppression. That's why you see that with the Buffalo situation. That's why you see that with the situation with the young lady that got killed. That's why you see that with this young man driving around minding his own business and the heathen nations. That's a curse.
Yeah.
That's not a blessing. Somebody coming and cussing you out and busting your window open just because you're minding your own business and you want to be left alone. They don't want to leave us alone. No matter how many times we say, hey, we don't got no problem with y'all. Stop it. Stop dealing with us. We march, we protest, we do all these things. But guess what? The only hope that we have is returning back to the covenant of our ancestors, fixing what our ancestors got wrong in order for the Black Messiah to come and save us. We got to do right by one another. We got to have unity. It's like we allergic to the word unity. We got to have unity. We got to have love. We got to have compassion for
Yeah.
one another. That's our solution.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Um, Anything else on this particular story?
The scripture says in the last days that many of us will awaken to the truth
Hmm.
of the state that we're living in. Okay, right now there are blinders over the people because they don't have a true foundation of understanding biblical prophecy, history, and current events. The Bible says that the man of sin has to be revealed, the son of perdition. This is clearly speaking of the descendants of the Roman Empire. They are the ones that have deceived the earth to
Mhm.
worship them. But in these last days, many are understanding that the man of perdition or the man of sin or the lawless one was the image of that same male that you saw that bust the window of that child. So, in
Yeah.
conclusion, as far as my thoughts, we have to wake up. We have to wake up to righteousness. We have to wake up to who we are so that way we can restore the decayed estate. And once we do that, these nations that have mistreated us will be judged.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing that. So we'll pivot to our last story here. We wanted to acknowledge Juneteenth. So last year on June 17th, 2021, President Biden signed a bill that officially made Juneteenth a federal holiday. And it is the nation's 12th federal holiday and the first new one since Martin Luther King Day, which was signed into law in 1983. Juneteenth is a celebration of the emancipation of the last slaves in the United States. President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on September 22nd, 1862, but it took nearly 3 more years before the full emancipation was achieved. So, nearly 2 years after the signing, Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas on June 19th, 1865, to announce that the Civil War had ended and that the slaves were free. And Union General Gordon Granger delivered the good news in Galveston, Texas, um, which was the General Order Number 3, which officially freed the final slaves. And so I think that is why Juneteenth is widely celebrated in Texas. I hear widely because it originated in Galveston on January 1st, 1980. Juneteenth became an official holiday in the state of Texas. So now we have a federal holiday. So that's pretty cool. And I'm glad that it took this long for it to be recognized in a major way. Your thoughts on Juneteenth?
Juneteenth is a good way for us to correlate Black history, slavery, and the Bible. It's a yearly reminder that we are literally the children of the captivity. Okay. God wants us as his people to humble ourselves and return back to him and understand who we are. For example, I'll read in Second Chronicles chapter 7 verse 14. It says this: If my people, which are called by my name, these are the children of Israel, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and will heal their land. So we as a nation of people are the ones that this Bible is talking about. Watch this. First Kings chapter 8 verse 47. Yet if they shall bethink themselves, that means remember who you are, in the land whither they were carried away captives. You have to remember who you are in the land that you were taken into captivity, the land of slavery,
Mhm.
right? And repent, meaning to change, and make supplication unto thee in the land of them that carried them away captive, saying, We have sinned and done perversely. We as a nation of people broke God's laws, and in learning about Juneteenth and our captivity, return back to obedience and fulfilling his word.
Okay, definitely. A lot of people, let's see what this says. We use Juneteenth to celebrate contributions of African American to the fabric of the country and to reflect on our rich history, which you referenced the history and the culture and things like that. I know last year I went to a Juneteenth festival here in St. Louis, and it was like a Black business fair with entrepreneurs kind of having a pop up shop showing their products and selling their products and things like that. So, hopefully, you guys as listeners were able to take a moment to reflect or support a Black business or do something of that nature for Juneteenth. But really, there's no you don't need a holiday to do that. You should be supporting anyhow. So yeah, definitely want to reflect back and on history. So
Black history is always important because it's American history, it's the history of our ancestors, and in restoring ourselves back to understanding history from a biblical worldview, we can help our people to gain back some sort of dignity, identity, culture, and grow and develop ourselves to be one of the greatest people on the planet. We went immediately after slavery into owning our own land, owning businesses. You know, you were talking about Black Wall Street and different things of supporting Black businesses. We
yeah,
did this right in the 1910s and the 1920s. And understanding that a group of people that are able to build themselves up, even regardless of the circumstances that we've went through, is a significant accomplishment. The reason why I say that is because if any other culture went through what we went through, they would have been completely devastated. They would not have been able to build themselves back up to a state where we have some semblance of a society. You see what I'm saying? So the Emancipation Proclamation was important. Knowing that we were set free from being enslaved is important. And knowing how this correlates with the Bible and Black history is vital in restoring us from the decayed state that we're in. We need Black culture, and Black culture is in this Bible.
definitely. Right. And then, so that was our last story. Please tell our listeners how they can reach out to you or find your content.
So I'm Aphiel Levi, the host of the Forefront Radio. Appreciate everyone that's going to watch this show. I'm the host of the Forefront Radio that talks about Black history from a biblical based perspective. You can find us on Instagram, the Forefront Express. You can find us also by the same handle on Fanbase or the Forefront Radio. Type in the Forefront Radio 1 on YouTube and you'll be able to search through our videos. We just had an excellent video that we just did a live broadcast with Jen, talking about other articles related to current events. And then feel free to, contact me if you want to email me for anything, whether it's a comment, leave a comment on one of the videos, or you can message me via Instagram on the Forefront Express. If you want to get interviewed on the show, you can contact me on our Gmail account, which is the Forefront Black Media at gmail.com. And it will be four without the E, the Forefront Black Media at gmail.com. And I appreciate you, Jen, for inviting me as always.
Oh, for sure. It's a pleasure. And anything else to share?
Jesus is black, Ronald Reagan is the devil, and the government knows about DIVOC 91. That's it.
We thank you guys for listening and tuning in so much. And you guys take care.